the virtual holding and not having much fun with us, but we are trying to do our best to integrate the virtual and the real. And this panel is probably an embodiment of that too these days, integrating the virtual and the real, because we're talking about halal tourism. And halal tourism all over the world, not just in the US. And we have some wonderful experts with us. All right. Here present on the stage, we have with us Dr. Attia Ahmad, who is an associate professor of anthropology and international affairs at GW University. That's where I first started out in university a long time ago. Her research focuses on the interrelation between contemporary Islamic reform movements and political economic processes from a gendered perspective. And she's been pursuing a multi-year ethnographically focused research project on the development of halal tourism networks in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Have you concluded that yet, or is it still ongoing? Okay, it's still ongoing. Post-pandemic, okay. She's conducted research throughout the Muslim world, in the Gulf states, South Asia, and Turkey, and she's the author of the multi-award-winning book, Everyday Conversions, Islam, Domestic Work, and South Asian Migrant Women in Kuwait. Wow, that's a conversion, all right. She has held fellowships, and including at the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies, and Stanford University, and the National Science Foundation. Her full bio is on the website. Joining us remotely from the UK is Soumaya Hamdi, who is the founder and managing director of Halal Travel Guide, a travel company in the UK focusing on creating better travel experiences for Muslims. It works in partnership with local hosts from around the world to design trips for adventure-seeking Muslims and provides free digital travel guides to help Muslims plan better independent trips. And recently, Halal Travel Guide launched its own instant booking platform. So now we have a MuslimBooking.com, it seems. So, also remotely, we have with us Reem Shafaki. Shafaki, excuse my pronunciation.
It's all good.
Is a partner at Dinar Standard, which is a growth, strategy, and execution management firm that empowers organizations for profitable and responsible global impact. Dinar Standard specializes in the global halal/ethical economy, deals with government innovation and social impact. And Reem leads Dinar Standard's travel and tourism sector practice and the firm's marketing strategy projects. She has managed research projects, developed business strategies. Her clients have included Thomson Reuters, MasterCard, the Marriott, which is where we are now, and the Office of the Prime Minister of Dubai. Reem has a BA from Ain Shams University in Cairo and a certificate in marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK. So great to have you with us, Reem. In addition, on stage we have with us Dr. Hussein Sani Umar, who is both an academic and an entrepreneur with a background in business management. He's got more than 15 years of media, tourism, business, public relations, marketing, and events management experience. And he's the founder and CEO of Maldives Halal Travel, which is a new marketing company launched recently at ATM Dubai 2021. And he is currently engaged in promoting tourism to the Maldives, primarily in the Gulf region, as a Muslim-friendly travel destination. He's also the editor-in-chief of the Maldives Halal travel magazine, Halal Weekly. So welcome to you as well, and it's great to have you all here. So a lot of people are asking, well, what the heck is halal travel? Is it really a thing? You know, we talk about things being a thing in this country. Is it real, or is it Memorex? You know, what is halal travel? Would you like to tackle that, Attia?
Sure. So I have some prepared remarks. If I go along, please don't hesitate to stop me. First, thank you to the organizers for the invitation to participate in this forum and for drawing much needed attention to the issue of halal tourism, especially now in the wake of the pandemic. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, I don't know. Second, let me briefly clarify my position and my role. As Elisabeth mentioned, I'm a sociocultural anthropologist, a professor of anthropology at GW here in Washington, D.C. I am not part of a halal certification board, halal company, or a purveyor involved in halal tourism or tourism more generally. Rather, as Elisabeth mentioned, I've been conducting research on the development of halal tourism, a term I first learned about and was curious about beginning in 2012. And over the last several years, before being halted by the pandemic and then resuming this past summer when I traveled to Spain and Turkey, I've been conducting field work to learn about the work of purveyors of halal tourism, including tour companies, tour guides, hotels, restaurants, halal certification boards, tourism industry officials. And I should mention here that I have learned a great deal from Reem and Soumaya, and I look forward to learning from my colleagues sitting next to me who I've met for the first time in person. And so I also conducted research with halal tourists, including individual ones and those who are on group tours, and research in important sites of halal tourism, most notably in southern Spain and in Turkey. And overall, my focus has been to document these groups' utterances and practices of what they conceive of as halal tourism. My role is not to determine who has the correct definition, but rather to trace how different groups understand and practice the term halal tourism. Okay, and so my role here is not to advise you whether you should be involved in halal tourism, either as purveyors or consumers, but more so to share with you some findings from my research. Okay, so first, some context. As an academic, I usually love to give some political, economic, and historical context. Now, tourism is a surprisingly significant global phenomenon. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, before the global pandemic, tourism accounted for over 10% of global GDP and 1 out of every 10 jobs worldwide. Tourism is also important to nation building and state-making processes, for example, to economic development, to soft power, to infrastructural development, for example, the building and maintenance of ports, airports, roads, etc. On the less positive side, tourism has also been a significant factor in gentrification, home and land dispossession, environmental degradation and destruction, and economic dependency. It's also significant to processes of exotification, where a place's appeal to international tourism is predicated on its perceived characteristics, what one might consider stereotypes or savvy marketing that tourism then inscribes. Tourism is also a site and means in and through which imperial and neo-colonial relations are produced. Here we need to ask ourselves, who are the tourists and where are they from? Who and what are the places being toured? And what are the interrelations between the two groups? Now, while travel, of course, has a longer historical trajectory, mass consumer-driven tourism itself developed in the late 19th century at the height of colonial and imperial projects. Religion was part of the process of the development of the tourism sector. So key actors like Thomas Cook, who founded what would become the largest and longest running travel company, Thomas Cook and Sons, until it folded a few years ago and was then subsequently bought up by a company and investors from China, were part of and motivated by promoting Christian fellowship and practice. Now, within this context, parts of the Middle East became among the most popular destination sites, including Egypt and the Holy Land, or the Shem region. And here, Judeo-Christian religious histories and imaginaries were emphasized. Now, over the past 10 years, the term halal tourism has developed and refers to growing populations, and finally answer my question, growing populations of Muslim tourists who are traveling, who often seek services and amenities that have not previously been widely available, who may have practices of travel that are different from the mainstream, and who bring different imaginaries and historical sensibilities to bear upon their travel. So I have a lot more comments, including how different actors conceive of halal tourism, but given the wealth of expertise on the panel, I'll just stop here for now.
Well, why don't we why don't we go to one of our virtual panelists? I'm just giving you a heads up that that's where I'm going. And perhaps talk with Reem, because that's one of her very specialized areas. And then go to Soumaya after that. Let me let you all know that once we put your voices on, you can no longer hear us. So if Reem, when you're finished, if you would turn over the mic to Soumaya, we can do it that way, and then we'll take the audio back.
Okay, sounds good. And so basically, I have that was very informative what Dr. Attia shared, mashallah. So we track this market, the Muslim travel market, and we also were involved in the market in terms of advising our clients, helping them accommodate Muslim travelers, and also helping promote. We've worked with Indonesia, for example, so helping promote Indonesia as a Muslim-friendly travel destination. And basically, our simple definition is, and this is not academic at all, but it's travel that allows Muslims to enjoy their tourism experience while not having to worry about their basic needs being met in terms of halal food, having a space to pray, and feeling comfortable, especially for women, feeling comfortable in the hijab. If it's on the beach, feeling comfortable wearing a burkini, if that's what they dress on the beach. So that's our simple definition. And the size of spending on by Muslims on travel is worth really focusing on. So in 2019, before COVID, Muslims spent $194 billion on travel. So it's definitely a market worth focusing on in terms of for the economic perspective. And there are many examples globally. I'll save that to later in terms of destinations focusing and tailoring their offerings to Muslim travelers. I'll hand it over to you, Soumaya.
Thank you, Reem. I mean, I completely agree with what you said. I think halal tourism really at its essence is everything that makes it easier for Muslims to travel, right? And over the last, I'd say, decade or so, we've seen a huge growth in the provision of services tailored to Muslim travelers, particularly in Asia. I think if we're talking about what's driving this initial spurt of growth, you're looking at Malaysia, you're looking at Indonesia, Singapore to a lesser extent. And this shift is moving westwards across Europe, UK, and then finally kind of starting to arrive in the US. And it's, as Reem said, it's a hugely valuable market. It's the fastest segment of global travel and tourism. So it's one that's not to be ignored. And it's a time for us to consider the opportunities that this provides both Muslim travelers, but also the tourism in general, particularly at a time where, as we've seen through the pandemic, that a lot of changes need to be made.
Excellent answers. I really like that. It's about what people need to enjoy themselves on holiday. I love that. So let me turn it over to Dr. Sunny.
Thank you. I started my research right after my master's in 2009, so I didn't know what to actually research on. So I was searching different platforms, and I caught up a professor called Professor Henderson in Emerald Scholars. So she was a Christian, and she was doing a piece on halal travel. It was named as Islamic tourism. Is it feasible, or is it a business model? So I was thinking, me being a Muslim, I haven't contributed that much to the Islamic side of my life. She is doing something there. So it was very interesting for me, and I was studying in Malaysia, and Malaysia started targeting the Muslim community very early on, and I attended the first, second, and a lot of workshops. Where Dina Taylor also was there, and Present Rating was there, so I met all the founding members of them. And then I started my journey. So when I was looking at the global population is 7 billion. Out of that, 1.8 billion are Muslims, roughly around 25% of the population. I was looking at Middle East, it is somewhere around 520 million population. The biggest population for country is Indonesia, which is around 207 million. India has more Muslims than Pakistan. There is more Muslims in Russia than some of the Middle East countries. But where are they going? What is happening in the market? So the term has been intertwined between Islamic tourism, halal travel, Sharia compliant hotels. So many things are there. But in academic terms, no one has come into a concession where to use which name and how. So in Malaysia, they call it Islamic Tourism Center, and they have their representatives in Middle East and all over the place. And around all the research, Malaysia has been number one for targeting the Muslim travels, especially the Middle East, the GCC, which is the most high spending luxurious travelers. So that is where the Islamic tourism and halal travel came into being. The first research was done in 1983 by a professor called Khader. So he was the first one in my research who was searching for this and why we need to target them. So right after 9/11 incident, a lot of Middle Eastern travelers were having restrictions to travel to West and Europe. So they diverted their travel to Asia. But Asia, if you look into most countries, they weren't ready. So Thailand now has halal travel, like Reem said, Indonesia, I mean, Singapore has it, even Australia is trying, some part of the Europe are trying. So that is where everything is happening. So back in Maldives, coming back to Maldives, we have a tourism from 1972, but all our tourism is entirely focused on the European travel. But very few will know this. Maldives is a 100% Muslim country, and we have everything to target this segment. But due to our overconfidence in the European market, we didn't have a need. Now, within the past years, we have a huge supply of resorts coming, including Marriott, Ritz-Carlton, and World of Astoria. But we cannot target that much of people. So now they are looking into other areas to target Muslim travel or Chinese travel or Zen travelers who are looking for retreat and mostly for the wellness. So last year in the COVID period, we were doing pretty well considered to other nations. So it was a time that I got the green signal. Let's start halal travel. Let's start Muslim promoting Muslim Maldives as a Muslim destination. So this is where Maldives halal travel started. And while I was looking at, I did a lot of research by Dinar Standard. Their first one was in partnership with Thomson Reuters, like Reem explained. So there's a lot of research going on, including Crescent rating and this Mastercard as well. So a lot of research, but everything is very, very new to this paradigm. And there's so much like halal fashion, halal Islamic finance is there, food is there, modest fashion is a huge market. So now I have started a small company called Halal Weekly, which covers news of only entirely on the halal sector. So there are so many areas to still to explore.
That's wonderful. While you're at it, why don't you tell us exactly where the Maldives are? I know it's an island country with like hundreds of islands, only a few of which are populated, right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Maldives is situated near Sri Lanka and India. It's just the daughters very not easy to find for most people, but everyone knows the name Maldives because it's very famous. Most of the films, movies, series, everything covers. Maldives is a 100% Muslim country, and there are 1,192 islands. Only 200 islands are inhabited. Then there's 156 resorts where tourism is executed, and the rest is uninhabited islands, so mostly untouched. And there are roughly around 20 atolls where a group of islands are called an atoll. So that is where Maldives is, and we have been in the tourism for 2022 will be 50 years for our tourism. So it was entirely developed and catered to the European market. But within the COVID period, we have encountered like 60, 70,000 from US. It was surprising for me. That's why I came all the way from here, there to here. Because why would someone take a 20-hour flight and go to Maldives while they can enjoy beaches and everything in South America and Spain and those places? It is because of the name and how Maldives is developing and promoting tourism. Because one small island is considered as a hotel. So it's so small that it's the sum of the resort, the size of this conference room, and the rooms are sometimes situated in the reef. So it's very unique. So people have a need to go there because of its uniqueness, its beauty, and for family travel, if you leave a kid in a resort, no one will touch them, and there's zero crime rate.
Zero crime. Wow. So, a question for all of you. Where would you say the greatest demand is coming for halal travel? Is it coming from the US, or is this something really new for the US? Is it coming from the Gulf? What countries are precipitating the greatest demand for halal travel, and where do people tend to want to go? Who wants to take that?
I can
Looks like
start.
Reem.
I can start answering that question and then hand it over to someone else. Um, so, in
So in
terms of
terms of
what
what
Sunny
Sunny
was
was
mentioning,
mentioning,
absolutely, the
absolutely, the
GCC
GCC
are the
are the
largest
largest
spenders.
spenders.
So,
So
although they
although they
represent
represent
only
only
3%
3%
of the
of the
global
global
Muslim population,
population,
they
they
represent
represent
over
over
70%
70%
of the
of the
spending.
spending.
And a
And a
lot of
lot of
countries
countries
are
are
trying to
trying to
target
target
Muslim
Muslim
GCC
GCC
travelers.
travelers.
So
So
that's
that's
number
number
one.
one.
In
In
terms of
terms of
the
the
US, I
US,
feel
I
the
feel the
US is
US is
really
really
behind
behind
in
in
targeting
targeting
Muslim
Muslim
travelers. I
travelers.
mean,
I
there
mean, there
are
are
some
some
examples.
examples.
I
I
mentioned, for
mentioned, for
example, that
example,
we
that we
worked with the
worked with the
Marriott,
Marriott,
and
and
that's great
that's
that you
great that you
chose
chose
Marriott as
Marriott as
the
the
location for the
location for the
event.
event.
So
So
we started
we started
advising them in
advising them in
2015 in
2015
terms
in
of
terms
how
of
to
how to
address
address
Muslim
Muslim
guests
guests
and
and
educating their
educating their
global
global
staff in do's and don'ts of dealing with Muslims.
um,
Orange County,
Orange County,
California, for
California, for
example,
example,
there's some
there's some
awareness and
awareness
they're
and
especially
they're especially
focusing on the
focusing on the
GCC
GCC
market.
market.
But
But
I would
I would
say,
say,
I would echo
I would
what
echo what
Soumaya was
Soumaya
saying.
was saying.
The
The
Southeast Asia
Southeast
is
Asia is
definitely
definitely
leading in
leading
terms
in
of
terms of
accommodating
accommodating Muslim
Muslim needs,
needs,
and
and
even
even
non-Muslim
non-Muslim
countries in
countries in
Southeast
Southeast
Asia
Asia
are
are
taking the
taking the
lead.
lead.
Like for
Like for,
Thailand, for
Thailand, for
example,
example,
and that's a great
that's a great
example of a
example of a
non-Muslim
non-Muslim
country
country
realizing the
realizing the
potential
potential
of this
of this
segment.
segment.
So
So
they
they
had
had
a
a
Muslim-friendly
Muslim-friendly
strategies
strategies
since
since
2016.
2016.
Also around
Also
that
around
time,
that time,
they
they
launched an
launched an
online
online
Muslim-friendly
Muslim-friendly
travel
travel
guide and an
guide and
app.
an app.
And
And
most
most
recently, they've
recently,
been
they've been
working, the
working,
Ministry
the
of
Ministry
Tourism
of
has
Tourism
been
has been
working with
working with
one of the
one of the
universities to
universities to
develop
develop
travel
travel
routes
routes
specifically
specifically
tailored for
tailored for
Muslims.
Muslims.
So
So
these are a
these
few
are a few
examples.
examples.
I'll hand
I'll
it
hand
on
it
to
on
someone
to
else
someone else
to
to
continue.
continue.
If I
If I
can
can
just come in
just come
there,
in
thank
there,
you,
thank
Reem.
you, Reem.
I think
I think
2 points that
2
you
points that you
highlighted that are
highlighted
really
that are really
important, maybe
important,
to
maybe to
explore
explore
further,
further,
are
are
the
A,
fact
the
that
fact that
Asia
Asia
has
has
driven this
driven this
initial
initial
wave, the
wave,
initial
the initial
growth
growth
of halal
of halal
tourism,
tourism.
and it
And
is
it is
happening in
happening in
waves.
waves.
And
And
one of the
one
main
of the
reasons
main
that that
reasons
has
that that
taken
has
place
taken
is
place
because
is
they've
because
had
they've
higher
had higher
standards, higher
standards, higher
expectations.
expectations.
When you go
When
to
you go to
Malaysia or
Malaysia or
Indonesia,
Indonesia,
you don't
you
just
don't just
expect your
expect
halal
your
food to be
halal food to be
certified. You
certified. You
expect your
expect your
biscuits to be
biscuits to be
certified, your
certified,
soap
your soap
products, your
products, your
shampoo
shampoo
products.
products.
They've got
They've
really
got
high
really high
standards when it
standards when
comes
it
to
comes to
ensuring that
ensuring
their
that their
lifestyle is
lifestyle is
completely
completely
halal.
halal.
Whereas those
Whereas
of
those
us
of
who
us
have
who
grown up
have
in
grown up
Western
in
majority
Western majority
countries like in the
countries, like in
UK,
the
Europe,
UK,
and the
Europe, and the
US,
US,
we
we
have, by
have,
nature
by
of the
nature of the
circumstances,
circumstances,
had to lower
had
our
to lower
standards
our
a little
standards a
bit.
little bit.
But times are
But times are
changing,
changing,
and
and
businesses
businesses
adapt to the
adapt to the
market. And this
market,
is
and
what
this
we're
is what
seeing
we're
happen
seeing
in
happen in
Asia.
Asia.
Another
Another
example on top of
example on top of
Thailand,
Thailand,
where this is
where this
really
is
well
really well
demonstrated, is
demonstrated,
South
is South
Korea.
Korea.
In South
In
Korea,
South
every
Korea, every
year for a
year for
whole
a whole
month, they
month,
have
they
something
have something
called
called
Korea
Korea
Halal
Halal
Restaurant
Restaurant
Week.
Week.
It's called
It's
Halal
called
Restaurant
Halal
Week, but
Restaurant
it
Week,
goes
but
on
it
for a
goes on
month,
for a month,
and it's all
and
about
it's all about
showcasing
showcasing
halal
halal
restaurants.
restaurants.
You get
You get
tickets,
tickets,
coupons to
coupons
enjoy
to
your
enjoy
food.
your
It's
food. It's
all over
all
social
over social
media.
media.
They do
They do
YouTube
YouTube
videos of
videos of
Korean chefs
Korean chefs
speaking in
speaking
Korean,
in Korean,
teaching you how
teaching
to
you how
make
to make
halal
halal
versions of
versions
Korean
of Korean
dishes
dishes
like
like
ramen or
ramen or
bulgogi.
bulgogi.
The point
The
being
point
that
being that
they
they
recognize there
recognize
is a
there is a
huge
huge
value to the
value to
Muslim
the
traveler.
Muslim
It's a
traveler. It's a
hugely
hugely
valuable
valuable
market.
market.
They will also
They will also
recognize that
recognize
Muslim
that Muslim
travelers aren't
travelers
just
aren't just
content
content
with
with
having a bare
having a
minimum
bare minimum
service of
service
halal
of
food.
halal
They
food.
want
They want
authentic
authentic
local halal
local
food.
halal food.
Muslim travelers
Muslim
want to
travelers
have
want to have
access to
access
local
to local
experiences. They want to
experiences. They
feel feel immersed in the culture, in the language, in the food. So this is what we've seen happen in Korea. Same thing happened in Japan, Hong Kong. Hong Kong Tourism Board actually has its own microsite dedicated to Muslim travelers. And I challenge you to find any Western tourism board that actually has even a small section on their website designed with Muslim travelers in mind. So yes, we've seen the initial drive come from Asia, but now you're seeing actually that certainly in the UK, Europe, Muslim travelers here are also starting to push this and increase this. And I know we said that GCC travelers are definitely the most valuable when you're looking at per capita, how much they spend. They often travel in families, they do spend a lot of money. But we're seeing kind of a new trend in the rise of a younger generation of Muslim travelers who are really spearheading the next phase of this development, which is a shift towards online, digitally available halal tourism services, whether it's to do with planning your trips or booking your trips. And in line with that, and maybe we'll come to it later because I know Dr. Attia referenced it, is a huge focus on responsible travel, responsible tourism, and how we can make sure that halal tourism avoids the pitfalls and the damage that mainstream tourism has caused so that we can provide a better model for the future.
Oh, wonderful. Dr. Attia, would you like to answer that?
Well, I'd love to sort of add and complement what the two other panelists have mentioned, that one way of maybe breaking it down is to kind of look at the demand and then the supply side. And I think Soumaya mentioned this, but just to kind of reinforce the point that on the demand side, Muslims are considered to be the fastest and largest growing population of tourists globally, at least at pre-pandemic levels. It's also important to note that the increase in interest in tourism among Muslims doesn't just mark changing income levels, but also marks an important shift in terms of taste and I'll just stick to taste. So, for example, myself, I am a Muslim with parents who migrated from Pakistan, and when I was younger, my parents largely saved up to visit their relatives at home. And there's an important shift happening where increasingly folks are not spending their travel budget on returning to places that they're connected to, but want to travel more broadly in the world, including learning about Muslims in different places of the world, including places where one might not expect them, like in South Korea and Japan and other places. So there's also an important change in tastes and spending that's happening. Also, just to kind of piggyback off what Soumaya mentioned, that there's an important generational shift where a lot of younger Muslims, for example, are focused on, or those who are of relative privilege and wealth, are focused on spending on experiences rather than on perhaps more conventional goods like purchasing a home or something like that, but are focused on spending to have experiences. And then on the supply side, one thing that's really notable is that in the wake of destructive or catastrophic events, think of that horrific typing, I always get mixed up, and then the nuclear fallout that happened in Japan. The Japanese government, with the utter destruction of the fallout of their tourism, or the bottoming out, I should say, of their tourism sector, realized that longer term they had to appeal to the growing population of Muslim tourists, in particular from Southeast Asia, including Malaysia and Indonesia. And so they really shifted in the wake of, again, the collapse of tourism, in the wake of those disasters, and started developing their halal tourism infrastructure. So, perhaps this is something for us to bear in mind with hope in the wake of the horrific events that globally we've all been grappling with in terms of the pandemic. And then the other thing I would note, and I can say this based on my research, as I mentioned, I focused a lot of time on Spain. I spent a lot of time, I should say, in Spain and in Turkey. And often when I wanted to take a break from research, I would travel somewhere relatively close by. For example,
Morocco?
I love to. But for example, I traveled to Hungary and to Georgia, expecting not to see any halal tourism infrastructure or services available, and lo and behold, I remember sitting down in a cafe in Budapest, and right next to me was a family of Khaliji tourists who were asking for a halal menu. And then in Georgia, I saw advertisements for basically Ramadan events, including Ramadan meals at various restaurants in the city center of Tbilisi. So really on the supply side, it's remarkable the explosion, the growth, including in places that are often unexpected, of halal tourism.
That's amazing. So it sounds like the pandemic is becoming a silver lining as it happens in terms of halal tourism, because the supply side realizes that they need to appeal to a different demographic.
Potentially, and I think I think everyone may have a different perspective on it, but my hunch is it's pretty uneven, right? So, for example, when I was in Spain and Turkey this past summer, although Spain's tourism industry as a whole was starting to recover slowly over the course of the summer, in visiting people who I had been researching with were involved in developing halal tourism infrastructures, they were utterly devastated and were not seeing a pickup over last summer. Whereas when I traveled to Istanbul, let's just say that the recovery there was happening more pace. So again, there will be unevennesses, I think, that mark the recovery, but hopefully on the whole, we'll see a lot of growth in terms of tourism.
So, do you want to add something, Dr. Sunny?
I mostly look into the numbers. So globally, 1.4 billion people travel. So where are everyone going? So in 2018, there were 108 million Muslims travel for leisure travel. This is excluding Hajj and Umrah. In 2019, it went to 180 million. So if you look into the reports, the number one destination for Muslims is Malaysia, because they are promoting Malaysia as a Muslim state and Islamic state as in every part of the world, mostly in the Middle East. The second will be I have traveled to ITB, Berlin, WTM, and so many other conventional fairs where I have seen they have highlighted Halal Japan. There's a big billboard in front of Japan and Halal Korea. They are promoting their destinations as halal destination in conventional travel fairs, and they get a lot of attraction, including Thailand and Indonesia. So what they are doing is they are also targeting these numbers, the 180 million people. So where are they going? How are they enjoying their travel? Post-COVID for Maldives is also very interesting. We get a lot of numbers from the Middle East compared to any other year. For instance, from 40,000 from Saudi Arabia, Middle East, it went to 70,000 last month. And from Saudi alone, 30,000 visitors, we had 30,000 visitors. This has never happened before. Partly because this was one of the few countries that is open in the COVID season. And then the other part is that Maldives has a very unique concept. There are one room, one island, one villa, and those things, and separated spa, pool, everything is separated. So it's very easy for them to indulge in the services. So if you look into the numbers, the market and everything, mostly it is 180 million people. So where are they going, how they want travel? And in research, they have highlighted 4 key areas, which is they're looking for halal food. That's number one. Then others like direction of Qibla, looking for mosque, and other things come secondary. Partly it's because of the halal food they are traveling, like Dr. highlighted. If you go into Georgia, Malta, or any other reasons, even we get a lot of clients from Kazakhstan these days. So it's also partly a Muslim nation. So these markets, mostly dominated by Muslims, are looking for halal travel.
I would put in a plug for Kyrgyzstan. I spent 10 days there with a friend who got married. A Kyrgyzstani American got married to a Norwegian American, and that was a beautiful 10-day Muslim wedding. It was gorgeous, very gorgeous country, very clean. So let me propose to give you all a last word, sort of thinking about the question here. Is this growth of halal tourism going to come organically, or is there something that Muslims need to be doing to really express more demand for it, to sort of boost it and jumpstart it post-pandemic? Why don't we go to virtual? Reem, you have some ideas?
Yes, sure.
Yes, sure.
So I think
So I
for the
think
most
for the
part,
most
it's going
part,
to
it's going
be
to be
organically and
organically
through
and through
organizations such as
organizations such as
collectively all of
collectively all
us
of us
helping
helping
the Muslim
the
voice
Muslim
be
voice
heard
be heard
and
and
communicating the
communicating the
findings from
findings from
our
our
research
research,
and that's very
and that's very
impactful. I
impactful.
think
I think
businesses and
businesses and
destinations, they want
destinations,
to
they want to
see
see
dollar amounts
dollar
and
amounts
numbers
and
and
numbers and
economic
economic
benefits.
benefits.
So, for
So,
example,
for
one of
example,
the
one of the
surveys we
surveys we
conducted
conducted
as part of a
as part of a
study
study
at asking Muslim travelers, 84% research before they travel, research whether their destination fulfills their needs as a Muslim or not. But at the same time, 39% said that usually they found their needs as Muslims were neglected at the destination they visited. So absolutely, it's a need, but it's organizations such as ours and destinations that need to raise the voice of Muslim travelers and communicate this information, communicate how much they spend, communicate their needs. And also, I feel in the US, there's a misunderstanding or a fear. They feel that Muslim needs are they're hard to meet, or that it would be expensive, or that they had to do major renovations, for example, to meet the needs of Muslim travelers. Whereas for non-Muslim countries, and especially in the West, just fulfilling some of the very basic needs in terms of food and making Muslims feel welcomed, especially in the Islamophobic environment that we're in the West, will go a long way.
Well said. Soumaya, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack from your question.
Yes, I know, that's why I asked it.
I think
You have the choice.
I would say that I hope it doesn't continue to only grow organically, because main reason, if we just look at the US and the UK, Europe, where Muslims have got used to lower standards, we really have to raise our standards and our expectations about what we expect to get in terms of services for Muslim travelers, whether you're traveling domestically or abroad. So maybe you've got used to eating vegetarian, maybe you've got used to self-catering on holidays, and it's like, I don't mind, I'll just eat seafood. But you see, as you've seen in Asia, destinations are like, okay, you want halal food. Not only will we give you halal food, we'll give you halal authentic Korean food. We'll give you halal authentic Japanese food. So the first thing is we need to give a little bit more, I think, in Arabic, the word is qima, a little bit more value to halal food as a bare minimum. But it really isn't bare minimum. We've got a lot of other drivers pushing this market. One of the ones, and you kind of touched on it, Elisabeth, is having these authentic connections with local communities. Again, typically Muslims can't access these experiences where you sit maybe in a nomad yurt, whether it's in Kyrgyzstan, whether it's in Uzbekistan, where you enjoy a meal made by a local, you spend the night in the desert under the stars. Where can you find experiences tailored to a Muslim like this? But the market shows, and our research at Halal Travel Guide shows that this is very much in demand. And actually, this is one of the reasons why we've started running these particular types of trips to places like Uzbekistan, like Bosnia, even like Barbados, which is closer to you guys in the US, where you may know that, or may not know that there's a local Muslim community there who are thriving, who have access to halal food, halal services. But of course, because Barbados is not marketed as a Muslim-friendly destination, it's not marketed as a halal destination, we don't necessarily know this. So it's about having higher standards, and it's about driving the market so that it's not just about providing basic minimums, but really bringing benefits both to the traveler and to the local community. And I think this is really important. And I know we haven't really been able to explore it, but as Dr. Attia briefly mentioned at the beginning, travel and tourism has caused a lot of damage and a lot of destruction over the last few decades. And it's not sustainable. We've got COP26 coming up here in the UK, one of the biggest climate conferences about to take place. And one of the key polluters, as we know, is tourism. At the same time, travel and tourism has the potential to contribute to nearly all of these sustainable development goals. Now, if we look at our faith, at halal tourism and the halal economy overall, we already have these principles embedded in our faith, right? If you look at when, and I won't take up too much time, but Abu Sufyan, when he went to visit Heraclius, and Heraclius asked him, who are the majority of people that follow your prophet? And Abu Sufyan replied that they are mostly poorer people. not the rich, meaning not that Islam is not the faith or the religion of the rich. That's not what it means at all. But it means Islam is the faith that empowers the poor. It enables people from marginalized communities, from people who maybe don't have access to the same resources that we do, to build and to develop better. And that's really what tourism should be about. It should be about bringing benefits to the traveler by enabling them to access transformational experiences, and also the local community, where money can circulate longer within the local economy, where women in particular, young people, are able to benefit from visits from tourists by giving them these authentic experiences. Like I mentioned earlier, nomad yacht in the desert, cookery session. In fact, one of the things that we've done is we arranged a cookery session with the mother of one of our guides. She doesn't even speak English, but because of her warmth, her hospitality, because she gave these Muslim travelers a unique experience out in the Bosnian countryside and taught them how to make traditional Bosnian dishes, the language difference didn't even matter. The point was that they connected on a level that was something much deeper. And this is the potential that halal tourism has. And I hope, inshallah, that together we can realize that.
Right, wonderful. What a great experience. Dr. Sunny.
I think we are missing the marketing side and the public relations side if we want to grow this segment. And like I said, there's a huge market. For instance, H&M partnered with a Muslim female to promote their products, and also Nike partnered with Halima, and recently Sephora partnered with Salima. So there are partnerships going here and there. Hopefully we'll see somewhere where Kylie Jenner also partnered with a Muslim to promote her products. But we are not marketing these products. We are not marketing the trade shows enough, or the products or services or the country. At the moment, in my country, there's one investor who is interested in building a halal resort. There were initially one communication between Turkey company called Caprice Gold and Maldives, but it didn't went through. Now I asked this investor why you want to do this. Because partially it's because of the faith. He doesn't want to engage in alcohol and also they want to do a dry hotel. So there is a lot of growth organically. Still, we have to push a lot from the marketing side and advertising. We have to let people know we are producing this product. For instance, in Maldives, 90% of the females, they get their shawl, the scarf from Malaysia. But it's a small market. Maldives is a small market. So there are so many products like halal cosmetics. Maldives imports everything from international markets. So halal cosmetics, halal spa items, so many items are there, but we don't know where they are. We have not seen the commercials. 1.4 billion people are on social platforms, 1.4 billion actively using. The highest growth is observed in TikTok, but I don't see that much content created on TikTok or Instagram. Last week, MMPRC, our tourism promotion board, invited influencers from US, from Muslim influencers. They are also inviting a lot from the Middle East, Malaysia, Asia, other parts of the world. And they come to Maldives and they create the content for themselves to show their audience that Maldives is a halal destination and there's so much they can do. And these are posted on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and so on. But most of our businesses and other things are not promoted. So there's a big gap in the social platforms. And future is millennials. Now, millennials, for me, according to research, is somebody who has witnessed post-internet era and witnessed internet era. So, and now we are focusing on Generation Z. Generation Z is those guys on TikTok and PUBG and those things. And then afterwards, it's Generation Alpha, the guys with the smartphones, born with the smartphone. So if we don't target this market, if we don't push this information to these clients, I don't know how it will be growing, but there will be growth, but we have to push a lot.
And Dr. Attia, the last word.
So we shouldn't and we can't be passive because things rarely happen that way, one. And two, we should be careful when we do. For example, if we think about the many services, products that Muslims offer, you think about processes of appropriation, right? So two reasons why I don't think we can be passive or we shouldn't be passive. One, especially based in North America, but globally, there's a discourse where Islam and Muslims are often associated with refugee crises or are associated with migrants. And it's striking to me that Muslim tourists mark the largest cross-border population, right? Although Muslims are very rarely associated with being travelers or tourists, but en masse, Muslim tourists far surpass in numbers refugees, migrants, both in the contemporary period and historically. Second, I think halal tourism and halal economies really provides an opportunity to underscore the economic contributions of Muslims worldwide to the global economy, and also to our ability, just sort of riffing here again off of Soumaya, of our ability to transform the global economy in ethical, positive, and productive ways. So I think those are reasons why we shouldn't and we can't be passive.
Wonderful reasons. And I want to thank all of our wonderful guests today, Dr. Attia Ahmad, Dr. Sani Omar, Reem Shafaki, and Soumaya Hamdi from the UK. And thank you all for being with us. And this is the end of our program for today. We hope you will all be back tomorrow. We have some marvelous panels that will actually get to some of the really hard questions that were asked today regarding certification and standards. We'll have another great lineup of speakers for you. We also have the awards luncheon. Please, if you haven't signed up for that, sign up at our registration desk. Our speakers, if you're going to be here tomorrow, unfortunately you guys won't be able to attend, but if you're here tomorrow, please do attend the awards luncheon. We will be announcing the 3 top halal awards, and then also some certificates for people who've been extremely active advocates in the halal industry. So with that, I think we're adjourned for today, and we'll see you back here at 10 a.m. for the first session tomorrow morning. And come a little early and network and enjoy the rest of the Expo and Summit.